on this computer. Okay, yeah, welcome to sculpture. We're talking about welding with hot knives and stuff. So if you can't use something like this, you might want to try to heat up a butter knife on a stove to be able to heat up a butter knife so that you can weld problem pieces that keep breaking off your sculpture. I do have 5 soldering irons, electric soldering irons that I can loan out to people. And so I will put those out on the table tomorrow. And if you want to come by and just help yourself to a soldering iron, you can. I also have 2 hot plates, those old-fashioned electric hot plates that have the electric element in the middle of them. And that's really good for plugging in and having a hot plate hot next to your sculpture area, because you can take a butter knife and just kind of either lay it on top of the hot plate to get it hot, especially if you prop the handle up level on something like an upside down saucer or a coffee cup or something like that. Or you can even take this and just kind of tuck it between the elements and kind of weave it in between the elements of the hot plate and just let it sit there, and it will take on the heat of the hot plate and not transmit terribly uncomfortably back into the handle, but the handle will get warm. But you can use that as a welder to weld your wax together when it starts to break and when you've got legs and arms falling off your pieces because the joints are so weak. So welding wax is kind of an important part of this that's really hard for me to help you guys with remotely when we're doing this as an online class. I can once again demonstrate welding wax this evening if you guys want to see it again as a demonstration. Does anybody have any pieces that are problem pieces right now that are falling apart for you guys? Arms or legs falling off of things that are giving you a hard time? Then maybe I can just take a piece and break off a piece like I did before. I broke this arm off and welded it back on before. Maybe I should do that on somebody else, on some other sculpture. Here's a lovely sculpture that I could do that on. Let's see, maybe I'll do this from the overhead view because the overhead view is kind of interesting too. So I'm going to change camera angles real quick and do this as part of the overhead experience, looking down on a sculpture. I have my torch right here, and so you can use any electric hot thing to heat up a butter knife or flame if you can. Aurora, do you have a propane torch at home that you could possibly use for welding wax?
I do, and I have been using it occasionally, but oftentimes I'll just hold a lighter to the end of my butter knife because getting the whole torch out with the computer set up and all the paper around me is a little sketchy.
Okay. I'm trying to arrange this stuff so that you can see the blue flame coming out the end of this propane torch. Propane torches are tuned to give you a blue flame that burns really cleanly. It also burns really hot. These things are made for soldering pipes together, especially copper pipe for your water system in your home. And so most plumbers use the propane torch for that kind of thing. So if I've got a sculpture like this and I've got a piece that keeps breaking off, oh my God, this arm broke off, this poor arm, and I got to put it back on. I'm going to try to, find a way to get that arm to go back so that the whole seam is back the way it was supposed to be. And then, we take a butter knife and we heat up the butter knife for about 8 seconds. 5 seconds just doesn't really do it. You need about 8 seconds in the flame to get it up to around 500 degrees. And then you can plunge the butter knife very quickly into the joint, just like this, in and out. I'm in and out of that joint so that I have fused the wax. I brought it up to a fusion temperature and melted it. And now the coolness of the surrounding wax is a heat sink, and it pulls all the heat back out of that joint so that weld freezes off really nicely. It creates all new microcrystalline wax with lovely microcrystals in that joint. And then suddenly that's a really strong joint. And I'm going to come around to the other side and do the back side of it too. going to plunge the knife in and pull it right back out again. I was only making contact for, half a second or so, but I was able to, go at least 1/8 of an inch deep and melt all of that wax. Now it's freezing off again and recreating a microcrystalline structure that it may not even have had to begin with. If you started sculpting this kind of with all little pieces of soft wax out of your hot box, they have no microcrystalline structure to them whatsoever. So they really need something like these welds to give them just a little bit more strength and oomph. I'm looking around here trying to see if I have any wax out, and I don't. I've got to reach across my flame to get to my hot box to get some particles of wax. So I'm just going to do that real quick, trying to do that without setting myself on fire, because that would be bad. Okay, but I needed a couple of pieces of wax, just any old kind of wax, that I could then use in my fingers and kind of take a little bit of wax in my fingertips and roll it out into something that's going to be like a welding rod, because I'm going to use this to fill in the gaps where I was welding this arm back together. A huge gap formed up near the surface, and so if I take this little coil of wax that I rolled out in my fingertips and I stick it in that gap, I can now take my hot knife and do a secondary weld over the top of that and weld that wax into that joint and try to get it to be flat and flush with the surface of the adjoining sculpted surfaces. And I'm going to turn it to another angle. I'm always holding it so that I can weld, upright, because this stuff just wants to flow. It becomes a liquid and it just flows really fast. So I kind of have to do it in pieces and in segments, and every time let the wax completely freeze off again before I rotate it and move it to another segment. But by using the wax and kind of making your own custom-made particles of welding rod, you can then do a custom welding job when you have to do that. So I've got one piece of welding rod in that joint between the arm and the backbone right there, and I plunged the knife in there to weld it in place. It melted and it slid down into place, and that's going to be a much stronger joint now than it used to be. You have to be careful after welding these all the way around. The whole area is kind of warm right now and it's not strong, so you don't want to try to put this down and have that arm support weight again. That really needs to be able to cool all the way down to room temperature. When I was working at the Walla Walla Foundry, when I just got out of graduate school, we had large stock tanks full of water in the wax room. And every time we would weld a wax like that, we'd go float it in a pool of water that was room temperature, and that would really chill down the wax really nicely. You could run this under cold water in the sink, or you could have a large, mixing bowl, steel mixing bowl, or empty ice cream container full of water nearby, dish tub full of water or something, so that you could just go plunge your sculpture, let it float in the water, and after a minute or so, all of the weld zone will come down to room temperature and be super strong then, and self-sustaining in terms of being able to support weight. So
that would have been so helpful like a week ago.
Oh shit.
But thanks for the knowledge. Also, have you ever used a blow dryer to heat up like whole sections of a sculpture so you can bend it?
I've never tried that before.
It works pretty well.
Wow. Okay, you're very daring and creative. That's really cool. How'd you do that? You just had a hairdryer and you went for it, huh? So
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to get my dancer to arch the back more, and I was like, I don't feel like cutting this off and trying to make it work. So that's how that happened.
well, that's great, because that's what I would have done. I would have cut through the torso and then cut triangular slabs out of the torso and try to re-weld it back together. And so you you focus the hot air from a hair dryer on there. And how long did it take? Like 5 minutes to get her to be soft enough to bend?
Not even. It was like probably about 2 minutes, if that, and then I bent the whole body just kind of carefully, and then anywhere that was like slightly cracking, I just filled in with more wax.
Okay, well, that's cool. Um, so those of you who maybe not have grown up making sculpture or crafts and stuff, all of this stuff is probably going whoosh, like right over your head, and you're going, "Oh my God, what are these people talking about?" Don't panic. I don't want you guys to panic. I want you to do the best you can, trying to form and create sculptures. And okay, I should probably get rid of the probably get rid of that and talk about things that are a little bit more formally accessible and easier to do, like the frog that I started last time, or the turtle that I started last week. And so, while we were talking towards the end of class last time, I was really working on the kind of smoothing out the shell on the back of the turtle, trying to maintain this ridge that kind of defines the center line on the turtle's shell. I played with actually enlarging the flippers just a little bit more. They may be even too big, in terms of the size of flippers, but it's small. And we talked about abstraction being okay, and exaggeration is kind of part of abstraction. So I guess these things would be a lot easier to see if they were on this background. So, so this is scrap wax. This is a frog. This is not scrap wax. This is my frog. And this is the frog that is supposed to kind of sit on its feet and have its head like up in the air or something. And I haven't quite figured out the balance point on my frog yet. So I'm going to have to try to work on that. Maybe if I just pull these toes down a little bit, because they got bent a little bit last time, I can get my frog to sit. And now, sit, stay frog. And so this frog, has its legs. It's got its legs kind of bent back and then forward again, the way that a frog's legs would bend underneath its body. And of course, from the top, it looks a lot more like the kinds of frogs that you did actually pick up as a kid out of the grass and out of the pond and stuff. And so it is somewhat abstract at this point, but it is kind of moving towards a certain naturalistic realism, without getting too crazy about that. The sea turtle, I guess, pup, the hatchling, the brand new baby sea turtle, is kind of doing the same thing, trying to find the contours and the body forms of the sea turtle from the bottom and from the sides. Oh, we're upside down now. And from the top, trying to get some of the contours to work. It wasn't a sea turtle when I started. It was pretty damn ugly. And it just takes a long time of working with it to try to refine. You keep sculpting away the parts that are fugly and don't look like a sea turtle. And you keep trying to smooth and refine and get the parts that are supposed to be sea turtle-like to be more sea turtle-like. It's really hard to talk about sculpture and not sound like a complete idiot. Because basically it's a super hands-on experience, and it's losing yourself in it. It's knowing that it's going to be bad from the beginning, and that it's only going to get better as you continue to refine it and work with it. So if you guys are at a frustration point now, because it's the third week of the quarter and you're probably hitting your frustration point where you've made this thing and you can't get it to look any better, and you want help, and I'm not even in the same room with you to try to help you, because if we were together, you could hand it to me and I could do a little bit of sculpting on it to try to say, here, this is what I'm talking about, do this, and demonstrate it a little bit. And then you'd go, oh, that's easy. Oh, now I know what you're talking about. And then you take it back and do the rest of it. And we can do stuff like that. Are you at any point, Kylie Dombrowski or Robert Green or Fiona Murphy, where you want to talk about something like that? You will not be made fun of or be embarrassed on it, because that's what we do here. We try to help each other out. If you have something that you want to try to show to the webcam, yes,
I made
Mr. Green.
I made 3 little things. I made a table. It's like a burger and a drink on it.
It's got a burger and a
Yeah,
drink.
I
So you
tried.
got oh, that's cool. Oh, that is so cool.
And I made like a deer on a
You got a
thing.
deer mounted on a mount. That's really cool.
I made a little basketball hoop with like a ball on it.
Oh my God, you're going to town with this stuff.
I'm
Would you
trying.
like to have one of those heat sources, the soldering iron or something? Are you in the dorms and you
Yeah,
can't? So would you like something to weld wax with to try to get those pieces and parts to stick together better?
sure.
Okay. Okay. Well, they will be out on my table that's right outside the west side of Eden Hall. I'll put them out tomorrow so that you guys can come by and get them. It's got about 4 or 6 feet of cord on it so that you can plug it into the wall, but you have to be pretty close to a plug-in. And then it's pencil shaped. It's about the size and orientation of one of these butter knives. And it's got a hot end that sticks out that comes to a point, and it's for soldering electrical connections. But it comes in really handy for actually putting heat where you want it on a wax sculpture to melt it together in real precise places. So that'd be good. Hey, Kylie, how about you? How are you doing these days? Uh-oh, did I call you out? Are you busted now?
No, I'm doing okay. The octopus kind of looks like a weird alien thing going on,
And you
and
don't want to pick it up and show it to the camera so we can all see your weird
I
alien?
know.
No, there will be no display of your weird alien tonight.
No. And my butterfly, he keeps dying because like one wing is too heavy, so it just keeps falling off.
It sounds like you need something to weld wax together too. So I want to encourage you to come over here and get one of these electric tools tomorrow as well. And it can either be the soldering iron, if that speaks to you, or it can be, a little electric hot plate that you can actually use with butter knives. I mean, either way, we're trying to heat up a metal thing that has a long handle on it so that you're not touching the hot part, but you want the tip of the butter knife or the tip of the soldering iron hot so that you can go in and weld your butterfly wings so they don't keep breaking off the body, basically, is what we're talking about here. When you weld the butterfly wings on, you're really going to want to have a big bowl of water or a dish pan full of cold water in the sink or something so that you can go float that butterfly so that it's supported and so that it doesn't flex or anything during the cooling off process, because that'll make those joints strong and then it won't keep falling apart on you after that. So there's a thing. So that could help for your alien thing too, whatever that is, which you haven't described well enough for me to even imagine what your alien looking thing is. Is it a person?
It's supposed to be an octopus,
Oh,
but
it's supposed to be an octopus. Okay. Well, you and Aurora just got to get together and have an octopus party and jam these octopi because, you'll get this. It'll be fun. Does it have 8 legs?
it barely has a head.
It barely has a head. Okay. Well, try not to perfect or worry about the head and try to sculpt on things generally and get some kind of vestigial 8 legs going, because they kind of help balance out. And then when you come back to the head again, you work on that for a while, then you go back and work on the legs for a while, and you just kind of keep dancing around this thing. It's kind of like being a bee and going around and pollinating a whole bunch of flowers. You can't just do one thing and try to perfect it all the way to the end before you start the next. We just kind of keep bouncing around, working on all the different pieces and parts of the thing, trying to bring the whole thing together into a unified, integrated whole. At least that's, the philosophy of trying to do additive sculpture and even subtractive sculpture. I mean, even carving something out of stone, you're pretty much, you're going for generally liberating an abstract form of the thing that you're trying to carve out of the stone before you're, going into really refining all of those individual shapes down even further. Stone carving is super hard, but that's still the general process as we go from, abstract and rudimentary looking to something that has more refinement as we go. And it's part of a longer process. Are you getting frustrated? Are you getting mad at the process? You're getting mad at the process. You're nodding your head. You're getting frustrated. Oh my gosh. Do you have any time tomorrow to bring your stuff over to Eden Hall? Because I will mask up and I will perform some surgery on your pieces and try to bring them back to life or move them along a little bit. We can do this one-on-one. I'm here all day long. I'm not doing anything. I'm bored out of my gourd. I'm actually helping some design students sew some masks, but I got time in between that. Do you have any time between classes tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you on campus, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. So, come on over. You can come over at, 10 o'clock in the morning. I've got somebody coming in at 11 and another person coming in at noon. Then I'm free again at 1. Do either of those times, 10 o'clock or 1 o'clock, work for you?
Yeah.
Maybe something like that. Okay. If you wouldn't mind, if you don't have any other classes at those times, and if you need to take a walk and get some fresh air anyway, bring your sculpture pieces over here. We'll stick them together and I'll help you a little bit. It'll be fine. And this is what we need to do in a face-to-face class that we just haven't got right now. So it'll be okay. And how about Fiona down there? I want to invoke the, say hi to Fiona because, hey, there's somebody. How are you doing with your sculpting? Are you getting frustrated? Are you making progress with your stuff? How's it going?
I haven't had like too much time to do it, but I've decided that I'm gonna do like these 2 manta rays. So I have one of them. I don't have it with me because they're my dad's and I'm at my mom's, but I have one of them done, and so I'm making another one, and I'm gonna try to like connect them and then put them on like a base. I don't know how I'm gonna figure that out, but
Okay, well, rays are really cool because they can be cantilevered off their tails. They can be cantilevered off of a base by just the tip of a wing touching on one side if they are kind of like just swimming at a slight angle or something, or even at a great angle, especially if the wing fin parts are flexing. So you have a lot of possibilities with working with rays as sculptures. That's really cool. The other thing we could do with a ray, like I was talking about last time, is put a piece of bronze welding rod up from a base element up into the belly of the ray, and just, God, my face is not doing us any good here, and just float that piece like 3 to 5 inches above the base element so that it's just caught in the act of swimming and it's floating in the water column and it's not attached to the base at all. So you could try something like that too. Does that help in terms of being able to visualize the finished sculpture and the presentation of it?
I mean, that's what I was like already thinking of doing.
Oh, you're all over this. You don't need me. Okay, that sounds good. So you're not on campus. You're at locations off campus then, right?
Well, I'm in high school, so I live here, so I can go like thing anytime.
Cool, fantastic. Okay, well, I'm available, and if you needed to come in for a consultation, if you had an hour tomorrow, I'd be available like after 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, if you want to stop by sometime. But it sounds like you're actually making some progress with these rays, and that you've got this pretty well under control. Am I reading this right between the tea leaves here?
So far I'm good.
So far you're good. Okay, good. Well, some of us are artists and art majors, and some of us are not art majors, and still, trying to, get this art thing done, which is really stressful, and all of that. And I don't want it to be stressful. I want to be able to try to help you guys as much as possible and to be a resource for you when I can. So you've hopefully got my email, or at least the residue of emails that I've sent out and stuff. So if you did a search, through your whatever email list for James Fritz, you'd find stuff from me. If you need to contact me, you can email me. Does anybody want my cell phone for texting and stuff? Because I can give you that if you want, but you know, no, I'm not going to make anybody, you know, write down my cell phone number. But we can text too if I, you know, to either in an emergency if I need to talk you down off of a ledge or off of a bridge, because I don't want you jumping. I don't want anybody jumping because they got stressed out doing sculpture in a sculpture class. Hey, you turned your camera back on. Were you sleeping, Robert? Oh, and then he's gone now. He's turned back off again.
No, I wasn't sleeping.
Oh, I wasn't sleeping. All right. Okay. It seems like we've got, you know, only the four of you, and I've tried to be as entertaining as I possibly can be, you know, for you guys. But, you know, you need to put the time in too on sculpting these things. And then if you can come by tomorrow, like on the hour, you know, 2 o'clock or 10 o'clock. And if anybody else wants to come in, you know, at like 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, you know, I can give you some individual help. I can, you know, weld something together that's continually falling apart and making you crazy. And I can sculpt on it a little bit to show you a few techniques and to give you, you know, some idea of how to work with our Italian sculpting tools and some of the other, you know, techniques for the additive process, so that you're not just trying to do everything with your fingertips. Because after a while, some refinement has to happen through careful scraping and smaller editing and sculpting. The Italian sculpting tool becomes an extension of the artist's hand. It becomes an extension of your fingertip because it can do things much smaller and in greater detail and with greater control than you can just with your clunky, funky fingertips. So these things actually are a real valuable resource. And that's how I was talking to you guys last time. I was just using the back of this thing to kind of scrape and also sculpt on my silly little turtle shell to try to get this thing, to get all the lumps out of the turtle shell and to fill in all the holes and the divots and to refine this thing quite a bit, because I would scrape a little bit, I'd get a little piece of wax residue, and then I'd stick it in a hole, and then I'd scrape some more the other way. And I got a little wax residue on the thing, and then I'd find another hole to stick it into and blend it in there, and then do a little bit more scraping. And pretty soon, in the fullness of time, the entire shell has this wonderful, beautiful, graceful curve with, you know, no holes or puckers or anything in it. But it just takes a while of carving and then filling in the holes and then carving again and then filling in the holes. And all the time you're thinking, gosh, turtles are cute. I like turtles. And that's, you know, that's not very helpful as a sculptor, as a teacher. You think you'd get more from, you know, an art professor than such, you know, simplistic silliness. But, you know, sometimes you got to risk being silly to be an artist. Artistic chances sometimes are, you know, taking risks about doing things that you've never done before, and just, you know, risking the possibility of failure, because, you know, we learn a lot from failure too. I've been trying to sew these COVID masks for 3 weeks, and I've got lots of failure. If you guys want failure stories, we can talk about James trying to run a sewing machine and trying to figure out how to make a pattern into something that's lovely, beautiful, and wonderful, because it ain't easy. So I put the wax on and I scrape it to unify it and simplify it. And, you know, over time, it's becoming a sea turtle, and it just does. That's enough for tonight. You guys are bored out of your gourd. I tried to entertain you, but if you can, stop by tomorrow at those times. I'll be looking for people on the hour. I've also got other people coming in sewing masks tomorrow. So, but stop by. If you come to the west door where this table is sitting outside my doors and stuff, I'll have that door unlocked. Usually, we also have the doors in the lobby unlocked and propped open so that you can get in here. So come on into the lobby, and I'll be in the drawing and painting studio. That's Eden 3. And you'll be able to see me. You'll be able to hear me. I'm down there working with the design students. So if you want to stop by tomorrow, we can. Otherwise, we're going to keep sculpting through the weekend, and I will check back in with you guys next Monday. So any questions for the good of the order before I shut it down tonight? There's nothing in the chat, and I think I've probably beaten it to death with you guys. So I'm going to say thank you and good night for now. And we're waving
Night.
goodbye, and it's fun. Oh, you guys are awesome. All right, I will see you guys next time. So good night and have a good
Where I
weekend.
froze.
Bye.